Hello everyone and welcome back. So today I went ahead and fixed the very last part of our program. And in case you don't remember, the problem was that we had the scoreboard. When it goes ahead and initially starts off, the score was already set to 1. Now I went ahead and debugged this myself as I couldn't quite find the error in last class, but I was able to identify it, and I will walk you through the steps I took in order to identify the error. So in case you don't remember from last class, we were able to narrow it down all the way inside the ball movement function to this 1 plus or equals line right here. So I went ahead and indexed that line, and I have all these prints here. All of this should do. So if I'm to go ahead and run Pong class, actually it won't go ahead and do it until it runs here. So you'll notice that we have a set of values here, quite a lot of values. Well, I made sure to name each one of them, and our first one is going to be our ball position. And ball position is going to be, where exactly the ball is located. On top of that, we have ball radius and pad width. Ball radius and pad width are both going to be our constants. They're not going to be changing, so in reality we could just go ahead and put 28, but this is just in case we go ahead and we change the pad width, we change the ball radius. That's why this is there, right? Oops, let's not edit that. So now that we, kind of understand how this works, so obviously ball position has to be less than or equal to this set value here in order for it to add 1 to our score. Well, when we went ahead and we kind of were trying to make our first ball initialization inside our GitHub repository, we can see when we create it, we have everything set as 0, 0. And 0 happens to be less than the constant of 28. And essentially what this means is that the very first value, when we set it as a random value, or what we thought was random of 0, 0, is not actually quite random. And, the reason for it is essentially just because, we set 0, 0 as, random values. We didn't really know what to put them in. Well, I went ahead and I looked a little bit deeper, and I went back to our program right here, and I noticed that in our ball initialization, when we go ahead and we create our new ball, we actually define the initial location as this, and our initial velocity as this, so 2 random values. So why don't you go ahead and make sure you understand what's going on here. Alright, so hopefully you understand this. Basically, I needed to set the values as something other than 0, 0. Well, I noticed one thing. That thing being that we don't actually need our ball position, because that is going to be set every time. If you look back at the top of our program, width and height are defined as the width and height of our canvas. So essentially, these aren't going to be changing throughout the course of the program, so there's no reason to have an input inside our Pong class here. Instead, what I did is inside our initialization of our class of ball, I went ahead and I just defined ball position as width over width and height, right? It's the exact same statement. And ball velocity is the only thing because it has to be randomized, so I went ahead and performed the randomization process here. We can go ahead and string this down to 1 line if we want, but there's no real point in doing it. It's pretty clean and concise this way anyways. So if I'm to go ahead and run it, you can see that this score is 0 now. And setting the initial position of the ball, it obviously can be a little tricky when it comes to when it doesn't actually affect the runtime of the program, but only the scoreboard. But you can see everything's running fine over here. There doesn't seem to be any bugs. So this is a fully working piece of code, and I will be able to upload it to GitHub for you guys to just kind of try it out for yourself. It's a cool little project, and in the coming classes I will begin to show you why we went ahead and we made it into a class, and how it can be useful when we have a class to be able to convert it into other more complicated games, right? And you may be wondering, well, what do you mean by that? Well, Pong is something where there's a lot of different things you can do with it, right? It doesn't have to just be stuck with one ball and two paddles. Just a couple of changes we could make is we could add another paddle, increase the size of the canvas, increase the number of balls, the speed of the balls, the trajectory of the balls, even the goals of the game, right? We could add two more paddles to the top and to the bottom, right? And one team is maybe playing to score on this half, and another's to that half. There's a lot of different changes that you can make, and the power of a class is that you no longer have to edit both paddles every time. You don't have to create a new ball every single time. All you have to do is make a new object, right? And maybe edit a little of the ball code, and all the balls will be modified in the same exact way, right? So it's a very, very useful kind of showing of how classes and objects are such a prevalent thing in programming. And I know this class is going to be a little bit short, as we only had one error left to really consider. And this one error, obviously it took a little more debugging than the previous ones before, but we were able to get over that kind of hump. And now we are at our final stage, right? And this is going to be modifying it past, our known perceptions of the game of Pong. The power of programming is that you're not limited to just a certain thing, right? There's no ceiling. As long as you have imagination, you can go ahead and try and achieve that with your programming, right? Programming is a very, very powerful tool. I hope you've learned that throughout this course, and you can see that we've created this program, three different ways, and it runs the exact same in all three of the programs. So in case you want to see them all, I can go ahead and run them. So again, this one is Pong test, and this one is the initial one that we pulled straight from GitHub, maybe Stack Overflow, one of those online websites. So you can see the power of open source. Our second one that we have here is going to be Pong rewrite, and this is the one where we made it into a function. And you can see I've printed values here, so I actually should not print them. Otherwise, it will be very angry that I went ahead and called to print it right here. So, yeah. So that is going to be all three runs. Hopefully, you guys were able to follow along. If you have any questions from previous classes, you can always go ahead, shoot an email, or rewatch the video. They should all be named in order. I don't want to drag this out any longer. Our next course, once we finish up our Python mini projects here, we'll be moving on to the language of Java. We will be starting from the very basics, and you will begin to see how all programming languages kind of have the same base almost. And intriguingly enough, you will be able to pick up the language of Java much faster than Python, as Python is probably your first language when it comes to programming. And there are obviously unique features of Java which will be taught. So I don't have anything else planned for today, and hopefully you enjoy this last version of Pong. It will be pushed up to GitHub, and I guess we can have fun from there. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching, and I will see you guys next week when we go ahead and we modify our Pong game to be an even better version of Pong. Thank you.